All right, we are live and we are recording. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. So, if you are listening to this, it is likely past July 1st, which means that we have officially started our July Step Challenge for all of our VIP one-on-one clients and for all the members of the iThrive Collective, which just launched a little bit over 2 weeks ago, and just already blown away on how cool it's been seeing all of you guys interact in there, have all of you guys share your wins in there as well, have all of you guys dive into the workouts already, all the recipes, ideas in there, and just really establishing a really cool community while also diving into all the educational resources in there. I'm really excited for this to continue to build and for this to continue to just grow even more. This is something that I've kind of envisioned wanting to have for a while, really for the past year or so, an opportunity for people who maybe aren't quite ready for one-on-one coaching yet and want to kind of see, what my coaching is like. They can get into, the iThrive Collective at a lower price point and ease into things a little bit more. Like I said, get a taste of what coaching with me is like, meet a lot of my previous or current one-on-one clients too, and get an idea of what their experience has been like. And it's been really cool for that. But also, this is a great place too for somebody who has maybe been a previous one-on-one client of mine for a while. Usually when I work with people, I work with clients for like a year, maybe a year and a half, sometimes even 2 years, just because of us setting new goals and, them just loving the one-on-one aspect of things and just continuing on there. But this is a great spot for you too. If you're somebody who's been in the one-on-one program for a long time and you really have a lot of this down yourself, but you need a little bit of extra maybe motivation, or you want a little bit of extra motivation. You want somebody else, myself, to write workouts out for you so you don't have to come up with that yourself. You want continuous recipe ideas. You want to stay up to date on new information, new research, stay motivated, participate in these challenges and everything. So it's a really awesome place for you if you're just getting started and you're somebody who is trying to go at this maybe on your own but need a little bit of guidance, or if you're somebody who's more advanced and you're on the tail end of your journey and you're just kind of practicing maintenance too. Like, it's really kind of filling all those buckets, which is what I envisioned. And then obviously, I have my one-on-one coaching clients that I work with very closely, where we're really into the weeds of things. But my program really missed those other two aspects of things. And this is really filling that void. And I kind of see the long-term vision of so many other really cool things that we can do in this group to just make general coaching, make getting workouts that are actually effective and not just some generic workout routine you found on Google that works for a few weeks and then stops. Making recipe ideas, making motivation, creating this environment where it's almost like a maintenance membership to join to either make progress or to even just maintain the progress you have made, forever. It's like an investment, right? It's having some kind of insurance on your results or on the results you want to get. And it's just, I don't know, it's very cool. And I'm really excited for this to grow and for so many more of you to hop in here and learn how to really see results the right way and actually be able to keep them off long term too. And it's been really cool the past couple of days too, because I've talked with a couple of previous old clients who have lost like 40 to 50 pounds with me. And now it's months later, even years later. And one even had a baby in between, and she's used the tools that I taught her or that, she learned while working together to lose the 50 pounds again after having the baby. And that's just so cool that this program, my one-on-one coaching, isn't only there to help you get results in the moment, but also you'll learn so much along the way to keep making results, or at least keep the results you did get, afterwards. But yeah, enough about that. Just really excited about it. And if you want to join the iThrive Collective, you can go ahead and click the link in the description of this podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can go ahead and click there to join. So yeah, would love to have you in there. So let's dive into today's topic. So I wanted to talk about the nutrition pyramid that you actually should be following. to see best results, right? We're all familiar probably with the nutrition period that we were taught at some point in school, where I think the bottom of the pyramid was, and I don't even remember off the top of my head, which is kind of bad, but I think the bottom was like carbohydrates. The second row from the bottom was, I think, like your meat, your fish, eggs, dairy. The one above that was maybe fruits and vegetables. I don't really know off the top of my head, like I said, but it was something along those lines. And there's been a lot of talk, actually, the past couple of years about how the nutrition guidelines from the government have, like, that's the reason why, we as a country have continued to gain weight, to deal with overweight and obesity, in so many populations. And this podcast is not about that. But this podcast is about a nutrition pyramid that looks a little bit different than that one you probably learned about before. And it kind of looks at things in a different way. But if you follow this pyramid with the results you're trying to get, whether it is to get leaner, whether it is to lose body fat, whether it is to gain muscle, whether it is to just maintain a healthy body weight range, lose a little bit of weight, whether it's to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it is. If you follow this pyramid, then you are going to see a ton of results. And obviously the details of this pyramid and how exactly you follow it is going to play an impact on things, which you'll understand when I dive into it. But this pyramid is what is always going on in my head on a day-to-day basis. And it also makes nutrition so much less overwhelming long-term, and also really helps you to keep making results even when your life circumstances are not ideal, and also will allow you to keep the results you have even when your life circumstances are not ideal either. So let's dive into this pyramid. So this pyramid was created by a guy named Eric Helms. So he is pretty popular in the fitness, nutrition, bodybuilding realm side of things. I don't remember all of the degrees or all the certifications he has, but I know he has like a master's in nutrition, a PhD in like nutrition for bodybuilders or whatever. But he pretty much has like the highest degree possible you can get in changing your body composition, changing your physique, and all these factors I'm going to talk about, or all these variables, basically can translate to overall health too, even if you're not a bodybuilder or a fitness professional. So this pyramid obviously shaped like a triangle, right? If you're watching this video on YouTube, you'll see me point the triangle feature or triangle shape, but it is shaped like a triangle. So you have obviously a row on the bottom, a row, on top of that, another row on top of that, another row. And then, the very top portion is the thing that you should be focusing on the least. And the very bottom portion is the thing that you should be focusing on the most, right? That's how a pyramid works in terms of like looking at it as a way of what do we need to prioritize first? What should be the foundation with our nutrition? What should be the other layers? What should be like the icing on the cake or the sprinkles on top that it might help a little bit, but it's not going to make or break, your progress. Like if you have a cake, but it's missing the actual cake part of it or the frosting in general, even if you put sprinkles on it, it's probably not going to taste good. So we have to focus on the bottom of the pyramid first and build our way up. And we should prioritize our nutrition in this order too. So the very bottom of the pyramid, when it comes to overall health, when it comes to changing your body composition, when it comes to fat loss, building muscle, even like fat gain, obviously like not a lot of us are trying to purposely gain fat, but there might be some people in a circumstance where they actually are really underweight and they probably actually need to put on some body fat. But the very bottom of the pyramid that makes the biggest impact on your results is the row or section called energy balance. And energy balance refers to calories in versus calories out. Now, there are a lot of factors that play into the calories in and calories out side of the equation. I'm sure I've done multiple podcasts on this and talked about this multiple times in detail, so I'm not going to dive into those specific details here. But essentially, it is how many calories your body is eating and digesting and absorbing versus how many calories your body is expending. And if you are eating and digesting and absorbing more calories than what your body burns out, in a given 24-hour period, a given 48-hour period, in a given week, in a given month, in a given year, your body will slowly start to gain some kind of body tissue to it. It could be in the form of either muscle mass, or it could be in the form of either fat mass. But those are the two main tissue types that you will gain over time slowly if you are eating more calories than what your body burns per day. That is where the energy equation is tilted in a certain direction, where you're eating more than what your body burns. And that goes in the opposite direction. If you are over time eating, digesting, and absorbing less calories than what your body burns per day, you will lose some type of tissue, whether that be fat tissue or muscle tissue. But you will over time lose tissue from those areas, because those are the two biggest tissue types that store energy for us to break down. And if there's a deficit in energy, so if we're eating less than what we burn, our body has to make up for that some way. And it does that by breaking down either fat tissue or muscle tissue. So that is the bottom of the pyramid, the big block, the big bar at the bottom. And the number one thing that you should be focusing on for overall health, for changing your body composition, is energy balance. You should have that in check, meaning, are you eating the right amount of calories that you need to eat to function optimally, to have high energy, to perform well in your workouts, and to also achieve the body composition change, or maybe even body composition maintenance that you want. So if you want to lose fat, you have to eat less than what you burn. If you want to gain weight, you have to eat a little bit more than what you burn. If you want to maintain your weight, you have to eat roughly the same amount that what you burn over time. Now, this doesn't always mean that if you want to lose fat, you need to decrease calories, because there are other, like I said, calories in versus calories out. It's simple when you say it, but there are a lot of factors that influence things. And there are circumstances where if you decrease calories, sometimes it shifts the equation in a weird way where you're actually not losing fat like you should. And sometimes when you increase calories, sometimes it shifts the equation in a certain way where you actually do start losing body fat from increasing calories, which is kind of backwards there. But there are circumstances where that can potentially happen. So don't think that just because you have to have a deficit means you always should be focusing on decreasing calories. And then, we can go down the rabbit hole of the psychological impacts of eating a super low calorie intake and how that causes hunger to rise, how that causes binge eating. And then you might be, eating less than what you burn 4 days out of the week, but then the weekend comes and those 3 days, your calorie intake is way sky high. So you end up overdoing or undoing that energy balance that you're trying to achieve. So there's a lot of nuances around that, but your calorie balance, the calorie amount you are eating, digesting, and absorbing versus what you burn, is the number one contributor to if you're going to gain weight, lose weight, or maintain your weight. And that is like one of the biggest contributors of overall health too, is just maintaining a healthy body weight. So that is number one. That should be your big main focus. Number two is macronutrients. So you've probably heard of macronutrients or macros at some point if you have listened to my podcast videos and, here and there. And macros refer to the protein you're eating, the carbohydrates you're eating, and the fat, the dietary fat that you're eating. In this category really could be labeled, honestly, just protein intake instead of overall macronutrient intake. Just because protein does play the biggest role in our body composition versus carbohydrates and fats. Like there have been multiple studies showing that at least if you're getting a minimum amount of fat, so you're not eating too little of dietary fat to run into any hormonal issues, then you are going to see pretty much the same progress in fat loss or fat gain if your protein intake is the same across the board. So this second category, which is the second highest priority that you should be focusing on, is your protein intake. And this is important because while energy balance dictates whether you gain or lose or maintain the amount of tissue on your body, whether it's body fat or muscle mass, your protein intake is going to dictate the likelihood of whatever kind of tissue you gain or lose or maintain, what ratio of that is body fat to muscle mass. So if you are eating a high protein diet and you are eating more calories than what you burn versus somebody who's eating a low protein diet and they're eating more calories than what they burn, Assuming they're both lifting weights and pushing themselves in the gym with their strength training, the person who's eating a higher protein diet will probably have a higher percentage of tissue gain that's actual muscle tissue versus tissue gain that's fat tissue. Whereas somebody who is not lifting weights and is eating a low protein, or who is lifting weights, but they're eating a low protein diet, if they eat more calories than what they burn over time and gain weight, then more of that percentage is going to be body fat versus muscle mass. So when you're gaining weight, because your energy balance is in a positive energy balance, eating more than what you burned, your protein intake, assuming you're lifting weights, resistance training, will dictate how much of that is muscle gain versus fat gain. And then the opposite is true, or the same thing is true when you look at if you are in an energy deficit. So you're eating less calories than what you burn. You will lose some kind of tissue on your body over time, whether it's muscle mass or fat mass. But the protein intake, assuming you're lifting weights, like I said, that's a key factor. But your protein intake will determine if you're going to lose a higher percentage of fat versus muscle. So if you're eating a low protein diet and you are in a fat loss phase, eating a low amount of calories, or at least eating less than what you burn, with a low protein diet, you're more likely to lose a decent amount of muscle mass along the way. Whereas if you're eating a high protein diet, the likelihood that most of it is going to be fat mass, or a big portion of it, is much higher. So your protein intake, it doesn't dictate whether or not you're going to lose tissue, but it can dictate what kind of tissue on your body you lose, and it can shift the balance of, or tip the scales to your body being more likely to either gain less body fat or lose more body fat and maintain more muscle or lose less muscle. So super important there, because muscle mass is not only important for our body composition, but so important for overall health, blood sugar control, being strong. That way we can, maintain good balance, prevent falls as we age, variety of things. So second highest priority that you should be focusing on this pyramid is your protein intake, aka macronutrients, you could say. So that is why the two biggest things that I focus on with my one-on-one clients is a simple calorie goal, which we do in a calorie range. And then we have a simple protein goal, which we do in a simple protein range. Those are the two biggest things we focus on, because those are the two biggest sections of that pyramid when it comes to changing your body composition or changing your health. Now, the third highest component is micronutrients. So micronutrients refers to the amount of vitamins and minerals that you are getting in your diet. So vitamins like A, D, E, and K, vitamin C, your B vitamins, other minerals like calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, all those things, they are lumped into the micronutrients category. And another way to think about this is what kind of how much of your diet is being made up of whole foods. So, are you eating a lot of processed foods to hit that protein intake, or are you eating mostly whole foods that are nutrient dense too, micronutrient dense too, along with your fruit and vegetable intake? So this is kind of where I kind of simply look at this, as long as I'm eating good quality protein sources, like lean meats, things that are aren't processed as much for my protein, I kind of label this micronutrient section as, am I getting my fruits and vegetables in? Am I getting in about 2 to 3 servings of fruit and 2 to 3 servings of vegetables in? And a serving of fruit is roughly about a cup if the fruit is raw, same thing with vegetables. And a serving of fruit and vegetables, if they are cooked, is usually about half a cup. So if you're just trying to estimate in your head, okay, what is a serving of fruit? What is a serving of vegetables? If it's raw, a cup is usually equivalent to a serving of each of those. So am I getting around 4 to 6 total cups of fruits and vegetables in, or 2 to 3 cups of each? That's kind of my mental check when it comes to, am I getting in good quality micronutrients? Obviously, we get micronutrients from other sources of food that are not fruits and vegetables. Potatoes, technically a starchy vegetable, but I don't think of it as necessarily in the vegetable category. But potatoes, we get plenty of micronutrients from potatoes, plenty of micronutrients from eggs, from beef, from fish, all these things. But assuming I'm getting in, those whole food sources of protein for most of my diet, I'm thinking this third section, micronutrients, is am I hitting 4 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables in my diet? So that is the third most important thing. So you'll see like a lot of people when they try to go on a diet or they try to lose body fat or try to make this change, a lot of people will immediately jump kind of to the micronutrient section of the pyramid and think, okay, I'm going to start eating more fruits and vegetables. I'm going to eat more salads. I'm going to start having more fruit for breakfast and lunch, which is great. Like those are absolutely fantastic habits to have. But the downside of just focusing on that is that you are missing out on the bottom section of the pyramid of how many calories are you eating? Because you could be eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, but if you are eating a ton of, let's say, really processed high calorie foods on other parts of your day, you might still be eating the wrong amount of calories that you need for the goal you're trying to achieve. And same thing goes for that second priority of the pyramid, the macronutrients or protein intake. You might be eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, but if you have the goal of trying to increase muscle tone, to have more definition in your arms, your legs, your glutes, to overall create more of a shaped look to your body and, feel strong and build some muscle, but you have no idea how much protein you're eating and you're eating maybe 50 grams of protein a day, it doesn't matter how many fruits and vegetables you eat, you're not going to do as well trying to achieve that goal with such a low protein intake. So this third category, micronutrients, is super important for overall health, for our body composition too, just because with micronutrients, we're going to get more fiber, which is going to help us feel full. We're going to get more vitamins and minerals, so we overall just feel more energized throughout the day. Like if you have 300 calories worth of food with very little vitamin and mineral content, that's basically just say like a supplement that's just like pure fat or pure carbs or even pure protein, but it doesn't have your vitamins and minerals in there, versus eating 300 calories worth of whole foods that are jam-packed with nutrients. You're going to feel more energized after eating the 300 calories that's jam-packed with nutrients versus the 300 calories that is just, like I said, like pure protein with nothing else, or pure fat with nothing else, or pure carbs with nothing else. So this third section goes into what I like to call like a little bit of an indirect factors when it comes to changing your body composition. So they don't directly cause more fat loss or fat gain, but they impact our energy levels and how full we feel and how sluggish or tired or energized we feel between meals, which then can impact our overall calorie intake. So all these variables are like really connected, and one impacting the other and the other one impacting this. And I find as we move to the higher parts of this pyramid, like we're kind of getting close to the top here, the top variables don't directly impact fat loss as much, but they have more indirect impacts on fat loss by how they make us feel while trying to control the energy balance and the protein intake side of the equation. So third variable up on top is micronutrients. So are you hitting your fruit and vegetable servings? That should be the third kind of biggest priority if you really want to change your body composition. So still very important, but it's a little bit on the a little bit down the list from controlling your calories and protein directly. Fourth most important variable in this pyramid. So we're getting to the top. There's 5 different categories here. So fourth most is what's called nutrient timing. And I kind of like to call this not just nutrient timing, but I like to call this more so like meal distribution. So what do your meals actually look like? How many meals are you having per day? What categories of foods are you having in each meal, as far as like, are you getting a protein? Are you getting a carb? Are you getting a fruit and vegetable at each meal? How balanced are they? Are you eating meals super early in the morning and then fasting the rest of the day? Or are you eating them super late at night and fasting in the beginning parts of the day? Like, what does your meal distribution look like as far as how often you're eating, how many calories you're getting at certain parts of the day, and then what protein intake, or how are your macronutrients and micronutrients divided between the day? And like I said, this fourth category, when it comes to the research and how it impacts fat loss, really doesn't impact fat loss directly if your calories and protein are equal. Like if you were to eat 2,000 calories per day and eat 150 grams of protein, and you were to do that in 2 meals maybe like, one first thing in the morning for breakfast and another one, let's say in the afternoon, your body composition changes compared to if somebody were to do that eating 4 meals a day and they split up that same 2,000 calories and the same 150 grams of protein between 4 meals. Your body composition changes, given all other variables equal, genetics, same routine, all this stuff, wouldn't really be different. You would basically see the exact same body composition changes. Would there be if you were to look in the tiniest level under a microscope and really take apart all the muscle tissue and fat tissue? Would there be any difference? Maybe, but we don't have necessarily the instruments to measure that deeply changes. But just looking at you and overall health, there would be no difference. So your nutrient timing or meal distribution, in a sense of how it impacts your fat loss or fat gain directly, it really doesn't matter much. But indirectly, it can. Because if you're just having 2 meals a day, then you might be starving those other hours that you're not eating. And that might cause you to maybe snack too much. It might cause you to overeat on those 2 meals you are supposed to eat. It might cause you to feel low energy, so you end up skipping workouts because you just don't have the fuel in between those meals to go and do those workouts. You might not go for as many walks because you're getting in less fuel. It might be less enjoyable. Like if you force yourself to do intermittent fasting because you think it's better for fat loss when it really isn't. And then you get maybe 2 weeks in and you're like, okay, there's no way I can do this anymore. I can't take it anymore. So I give up. Those are all factors that indirectly impact your fat loss too. And it could go in the other direction too. There are some people who would much rather have just 2 or 3 bigger meals in the day versus having 4 or 5 smaller meals. And when they have 4 or 5 smaller meals, they just never feel really satisfied because those meals are much smaller and they end up actually just overeating calories more because they're trying to fill that fullness void they're not getting from the smaller meals. Versus if they were to have just maybe, let's say, 2 bigger meals or 3 bigger meals, they might feel more full and satisfied on those meals, and that might help them to stick to those 2 bottom rungs of the pyramid better, the calorie intake and the protein intake. So this nutrient timing or meal distribution part of it doesn't directly impact fat loss, but it can indirectly. Another way meal distribution or nutrient timing can impact potentially your results is when you are having meals based on when you're supposed to work out. If you are having your last meal hours before you're supposed to work out, then you're not going to feel as energized probably going into that workout. You're probably not going to have as good of a gym session. You're not going to feel as strong. You're probably going to feel sluggish, in the gym doing those exercises, which will make the gym less enjoyable, which could then down the road impact you showing up to the gym. You might be dreading it and it might feel like a chore because you never feel energized going into that workout. So you never really get that enjoyment while doing it. So you end up stopping versus somebody who does, have a little bit of a pre-workout meal or snack right before, feel energized going in. They might over time learn to enjoy the gym more because they're actually fueling themselves right before they go in. So these are all detailed as to why meal distribution and meal timing is important, but they don't directly impact fat loss or body composition. It's more indirect. And one last example too of how meal distribution or nutrient timing can impact your results is, are you having balanced meals throughout the day? So I can't tell you how many clients when they first signed on and we've taken a look at their food intake and their meals and we've had discussions back and forth where they tell me I'm just so hungry even after I eat breakfast. And I'm also sluggish too. And I find myself crashing, just a couple of hours after my first meal. And then it causes me to overeat. So then we sit down and take a look at their breakfast, and their breakfast is maybe just a small bowl of cereal and that's it. And I'm like, well, this makes perfect sense why your energy is crashing just soon after you have this meal and why you're not feeling full and satisfied until your next meal is because you're just having straight carbohydrates. And carbohydrates aren't bad to include in your breakfast. I have carbohydrates with really every meal I have, but I also make it a point to make sure I'm getting a good amount of protein with that meal too, along with some kind of fruit and/or vegetable too. So instead of just having a bowl of cereal, let's have maybe like 200 grams of high protein, low fat Greek yogurt. And let's also add some blueberries and strawberries to that yogurt. And then let's maybe have, a serving of cereal with that potentially. And let's try to have some kind of whole grain cereal too, so we get more fiber. So that's a much more balanced meal where you're getting, 20 to 30 grams of protein at least in that meal. You're getting some kind of fruit and / or vegetable. You're getting plenty of fiber from the fruits, the berries in there. You're also getting fiber from the whole grains that are in there. And that meal, even if the calorie intake is the same, like let's say you have a huge bowl of cereal, it's 400 calories versus having this more balanced meal and it comes out to 400 calories, you're going to feel way more satisfied, feel way more energized, feel way more full, and feel more mentally sharp and avoid that crash having that balanced meal versus having just the meal that's just straight carbohydrates. Like if you look at your meals that you have and a meal is just like one macronutrient, whether it's just protein or it's just carbohydrates or it's just fat that you're eating, you're probably going to feel pretty hungry in the next like hour or two still, and you probably aren't going to feel satisfied. It's having a combination of those, a protein, carbohydrate that's ideally high in fiber, having some kind of healthy fat source with that meal, and also having a fruit and vegetable with that meal. Like that's the format we want to have roughly 3 to 5 times a day. Like whether you have that, 3 times or 5 times doesn't matter, but we want to have at least 3, if not, 4 or 5, like really balanced eating periods. And I hate even calling them meals because people think like, oh, well, I just eat 3 meals a day and I have 2 snacks. But like we want to follow the same format if we can for the most part, even with our snacks. Like you don't want to just have a snack of just carbohydrates. Like you want a snack that has some protein and maybe a fruit. So you're getting some kind of protein with some kind of carbohydrate too. And that's going to help you to feel more full, more energized for longer, more satisfied. It's going to help you to avoid those blood sugar crashes too between meals. And you're overall just going to feel so much better. So meal distribution matters a ton with how we feel throughout the day. Making sure, we're spacing our meals out to what fits our kind of hunger signals. So, eating for me, maybe roughly every 4 hours or so, having a balanced meal, having that clear distribution of, okay, here's my protein for this meal, here's my fruit or vegetable, and here's my ideally some kind of whole grain carbohydrate. I'm making sure I have those components. And that's going to help me to feel very full, energized, satisfied throughout the entire day. So that is category number 4. And now category number 5, the very last category, are supplements. So this is also another one that a lot of people skip to, and they think, okay, I'm going to buy this supplement. I'm going to start taking creatine or taking protein or this or that. And I actually kind of think of protein supplements almost as like food because they help with our protein intake. So maybe saying protein is maybe not the best example there, but they're multivitamins, they're fish oil, they're creatine. They think about all these other quote unquote fat burning supplements, which I've done a podcast on fat burning supplements and how they're bullshit anyway. So don't buy those. But these are like the lid. I wouldn't even call them the icing on the cake. I don't even know if I would call them the cherry on the top. They're like little bit of sprinkles, or maybe it's even not even sprinkles. Maybe it's, the container that you eat the ice cream in, like whether it's an ice cream cone or a bowl. Like maybe you prefer it in a bowl, but somebody gives you an ice cream cone and then it's kind of dripping on the side and it's inconvenient, but it still tastes good. Like it's not going to ruin the ice cream. So these are very small details. And I've done podcast episodes on what supplements I generally would recommend for most people. And it's not a really big list. It's really a solid multivitamin, vitamin D supplement during times when you're not getting a lot of sunlight, or for somebody who lives in an area where you're not getting sunlight. But, I would, even if you could, check with your doctor to see where your vitamin D levels are, because you might not necessarily need that, but it's something to think about. But a multivitamin, vitamin D supplement, a fish oil, creatine, monohydrate, especially for somebody who lifts weights. But there's a lot of research that shows that creatine could even be beneficial. Creatine monohydrate for other areas too, brain health and focus and things like that as well. Those are really the only 4 off the top of my head now that I'm thinking, that I would really look into. Maybe if you're like really, I don't know, if you're going down the rabbit hole as far as like really wanting to do well with your gym performance each session, maybe a pre-workout supplement, but just be mindful of how much caffeine it has, how much caffeine you're having the rest of the day if you do. Also be mindful of if you are having it close to bedtime or even like late in the afternoon. Tons of research behind having caffeine late in the afternoon can definitely cause disruptions in your sleep. Even if you don't think it messes with your sleep, it does. So that would be something to just like keep in mind and be mindful of. But other than a multivitamin, a fish oil, maybe a vitamin D supplement, and creatine monohydrate, like there's really not a whole lot of other ones where you really should for sure spend your money on. And like I said, these are just icings on the cake and they don't directly impact fat loss. Like just from taking creatine or just from taking a multivitamin or fish oil, they're not going to make you lose any body fat. They're not going to affect that, but they might impact just general overall health and also, how you feel, maybe helping you to cap off some micronutrients that maybe are a little bit lower just because, you missed a few servings of fruit today or whatever it is. But that's like those are like the little sprinkles, on the top of the cake or the ice cream that don't make or break you, but they're there. And the way I use this pyramid to maintain my results or to keep making results even when my life circumstances are not ideal is you just always work from the bottom and then work your way up depending on, how overwhelming life is in the moment, what kind of things you have going on, what environment you're in. And on a stress level, like personal stress or, mental stress, what can you handle at the moment? So like if I'm in a really good groove with my routine, we don't really have a lot going on in life. Like it's a slow month or whatever, we don't have a lot of events, parties, whatever it is. Like I'm going to be able to be pretty on point with all these variables with, my calorie intake, my protein intake, my micronutrient intake, my meal timing, and even my supplements, right? But if I have a weekend where I'm traveling and going to see family, maybe a couple hours away, I'm not staying in my own house or someone else is prepping or preparing the meals, I might not be able to, have a perfect meal distribution or hit my perfect fruit and vegetable intake mark or hit my supplements perfectly, but maybe I can still focus on my overall calorie intake or my energy balance and my protein. And just from focusing on those two things, I'm focusing on the two biggest things that are going to impact my results. Or maybe I go on vacation and for whatever reason, the protein options are limited. I can at least be mindful of how many calories I'm eating, whether I'm logging it or just estimating or just trying to listen to my fullness signals as I'm eating to, because I've done so much practice as far as tracking my food at maintenance that I know what my body feels like as I eat maintenance when I don't track, which is like one huge benefit of tracking your food for a long period of time is you see the number of how many calories you're eating and you like can connect that to physically how your stomach is feeling as far as fullness. And over time, you can really develop this skill. But, I can listen to those hunger skills or those fullness signals that I have and, adjust how many calories I'm eating based off of that, even if I'm not necessarily tracking it in my food log and stay at least around maintenance. If I have a week of work. Like I have some clients where sometimes they have really busy weeks at work. Like some clients, their work really picks up at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. And when you have a week like that, you might be like, I know I'm probably not going to, eat as many fruits and vegetables this week. I'm going to obviously try to get as many as I can, but I might not hit my normal intake, but I can at least, control my calorie intake and my protein intake. And I'm at least hitting those two, important variables. So like you can always like shift the amount of these variables that you focus on based on what your life circumstance or where your life circumstance is or the environment you're in. And what you always want to think about is starting from the bottom though. Like whenever you're eliminating some of these variables that you focus on, the more you can start at the bottom and at least control the calorie intake and, even better yet, the calorie and the protein intake, even if your food sources, they're a little bit more processed than usual, they probably aren't as nutrient dense or micronutrients dense as they could be. At least you're focusing on the two biggest things that are going to impact your results, or at least the number one big thing, like I said, calorie intake. So keep this in mind. Utilize this pyramid in your head whenever you have moments where life's crazy, life's hectic, or you have to make, an unideal choice. Like let's say it's 8 p.m. and you're super exhausted, had a long day, nothing was prepped for dinner. Your kids just got done with baseball and they want to go through the McDonald's drive-thru. Sure, maybe you won't hit your protein intake. Maybe you won't hit your fruit and vegetable intake, even though I think you can order like possibly salads and maybe even apple slices at McDonald's. I'm not sure. But let's say you can't. And the only thing you can control is your portion size and your calorie intake. Go ahead and control that, because if you do that, you're at least controlling the most important piece of this pyramid, which is that bottom section there. So hopefully this was helpful as far as, determining what are the biggest things you want to prioritize when it comes to seeing long-term results, maintaining your results, and, keep making results even when your circumstances are not ideal. Because a lot of people, when they run into these difficulties in life or these difficult situations, they think, oh, like I can't follow the same meals that I'm having. I can't get the fruits and vegetables I need. I'm just going to not worry about anything and say, screw it. Where you could really still focus on that bottom rung, the energy balance side, or at least even the two bottom rungs, the energy balance and the protein, and still like make the most out of that situation and still see really great results, even if for a few days or even a week, your vegetable intake or your fruit intake is down. So hopefully this was helpful. Like I said, if you want to join the iThrive Collective and get in on the step challenge, use the link in the description below to join. DM me if you have any questions before you join. If you have something that you want clarified before you go ahead and sign up, log in and pay, that's totally fine, but would love to see you in there. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one.